Well, hello there. We're doing something different today, and I'm having to wait for people to show up here before I get started in earnest. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing and why. And as soon as people start showing up, we'll get started with the models that I'm going to be showing you. So what we're doing is, somebody suggested last time that I do a video on which I show everybody my HO scale collection and, well, my train collection, because I have two scales. I have HO and I have N scale, and I've been collecting items now for the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. So today I'm going to show you as much of the HO scale layout as I can in a reasonable amount of time. And I have my top secret producer here off camera helping out. So thanks, top secret producer. And we're going to start with my Italian models. These are some trains that I got when I was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. As a kid, my parents went to Italy and we stayed home, meaning me and my brothers and my sisters stayed home. And when they came back, they gave us some trains, or they gave me some trains. And I think that some of these might have been intended for one of my siblings, but I ended up with them. And it's kind of ironic because recently as maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I've been telling people that I really got into trains when I was 7 or 8 years old. And then I found some pictures while I was scanning some slides that were family photos from the early 70s, and I really got my first train when I was about 2 years old. And I also got my second train when I was about 2 years old. So it really goes back a lot longer than I thought. And these Italian trains that I'm about to show you are really the ones that, up until recently, that was what my most recent recollection of having any kind of interest in trains was with these Italian trains. So I have my computer off screen here to my left, and I'm switching cameras on this computer while I'm talking to you. So when you see me looking down here, that's what I'm doing. So let's take a look at these trains. So you can see we have a little 040 tank engine, a car, I'm guessing car parts. Poor internet quality, it says. I apologize for the bad picture quality. I'm trying to do this from home, and my internet connection at home is awful. So hopefully this is watchable. If it's really horrible and unwatchable, just say something in the comments and we'll figure an alternative way to do this. Anyway, hopefully you can see this. This is a Fiat auto parts car. It says Fiat right there on the door. And then it also has the reporting marks here on the left side. And if you look, you can also see that most of these Italian cars have only one axle for each end of the car. And I think that is prototypical for some certain era. That's something that U.S. railroads never really did. I mean, maybe in the very, very beginning, but we haven't had single axles like this on each end of the car for a really long time. So the next one is some kind of a chemical, or I don't know if it's a petroleum car or what, but as you can see, looking at it, this car has some pretty delicate details on it, and some of them, as with a lot of these cars that I'm going to be showing you, the details are missing because they really haven't been taken that well care of, unfortunately. I think if I had known that I would end up doing this when I was much younger, I would have probably figured some other way to store these things more carefully. But thinking for the 70s, this is probably a pretty detailed car, and these hand railings and stuff are pretty delicate, as is the ladder. And it has one on each side, like you might expect. So there's that. And this next one is some kind of a, I'm not even sure what this thing was supposed to be. It had one more of these little roof deals that slid to the end, but it wasn't in the box. And you can see that these actually slide. And what I ended up doing with this as a kid was I just took the whole roof assembly off and made it into, like, you know, a bulkhead flat car, because we don't have anything, at least not that I'm aware of, that resembles this kind of a covered wagon here in the States. And as you can see now, this one has the two axle trucks rather, instead of the single axle trucks. And again, you know, fairly decent detail for something as old as it is. And also it has those funky couplers, and there's just missing parts on a lot of these things. Now this gondola, or it might actually be technically be a hopper, but this one had a cover on it when it was new that sort of tilted. So if it was tilted back like this, the whole cover ran the back length, and then you could turn it up, and it was connected on these little pegs on the end, just like this, running around there. Okay. I'm fiddling around with my bit rate just a little bit. That should help the buffering. So let me know if that gets any better. So as I was saying, I saw locomotives that looked very similar to this when I was in Italy a few years ago, or 10 years ago. And if you look, you can see it should have pantographs on here. And it did actually at one point. It had working pantographs that you could raise and lower. And as I was unpacking this for the video today, I found pieces of those pantographs in the box in a bag. So apparently I was aware enough when I, you know, the last time I was in that box to try to salvage as much of that as I could. But so this is an electric locomotive, or a model of a electric prototype, I should say. And I don't know, I always liked this one because it had a light, a working light in it. The little steam engine didn't have any working lights. It was just a locomotive with no frills. And then we'll take a quick look at these passenger cars. I think that these passenger cars reflect cars from different countries, because I did recognize what looked to me like German writing on one of them. And I always thought that was kind of strange to have an Italian train set with German cars in it, but that's what it is. So I'll just kind of go through these real quick. You can see also that these have those funky little couplers, the hook and loop couplers. And as you can see, this one is similar in terms of detail and so forth. And something else I noticed is that some of these actually have interiors and some of them don't. So it's kind of a cool little paint scheme there. This one looks like some kind of a baggage car. Actually, this one to me looks like it goes with the first one that we looked at a couple seconds ago. And you know, it's interesting to look at these cars as old as they are and trying to, you know, feel like what it felt like when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And having your first real train set. It's pretty cool. This one looks like it might have Italian writing on it. It's kind of hard to tell. It says Carbozza con Letti over here, which I don't know what that means. I'm sure somebody watching probably does.
Gary.
Is Gary watching?
Yeah.
Oh, what does that mean, Gary? Someone will translate for us.
Carrozza con Letti.
Yeah, I don't know if it wasn't buffering when I said that. Is our picture okay still? Are we doing okay?
It's buffering less.
Okay, I'm going to lower our bit rate just a little bit more here. Hopefully the picture will still be watchable. But I'm going to try this if I can find it. This is the problem when you're trying to deal with a very marginal internet service in the first place. And so I'm not seeing where I can change my... Well, if it comes back, I'll try again. So some of you might recognize this one.
Gary says sleeper.
Oh, it was a sleeper car. Very cool. This is one of my favorite collections, only because it was my first U.S. train set, and at least somewhat resembled the trains that I was seeing when I was a kid. So we'll look at the locomotive first, since it's in the picture. I do. I want that. Yeah. I'm going to show you the power pack that came with it too in just a minute. So the Silver Streak, right? I think there was a movie by that name too. And I honestly don't know. It looks like it was probably some kind of Alko, just based on this little hatch thing up here, or whatever these intakes up here. I don't know that. This is Tyco, so it was probably very loosely based on something. But something I found ironic about it is that they did put on a Union Pacific shield on the front. At least that's what it says. Now, I don't know. I'm sure this is not a Union Pacific licensed model. But that was it, though. That was the first U.S. train, if you will, that I had. And something that I like about this also is that all the rolling stock to it has the right number of axles on it. So that was kind of a cool thing. And I believe people call these billboard cars or something like that, because basically what it is a billboard, in this case for Ralston Purina. I don't know that, or if a car like this ever really existed, out on the real railroads. But I always liked this one. It just has kind of a cool look to it. Then, of course, and I've talked about this one in the past, the Burlington Northern. This was very much a favorite of mine because I like green and because I had seen Burlington Northern, and I don't know, it just seemed really cool to have a Burlington Northern boxcar on my trains, in my train set. And looking at it now, it's just awful. I mean, it is such a crude model. And then it also has these horrendous couplers, the horn hook couplers. I wouldn't even try to use those now because they're just awful. But, a molded detail that looks very crude and junky. Get a better picture of it like this. Oh, it's just really not that good. But you know what? For a kid, it was fine. I had a lot of fun with that. Surprisingly, or should I say shockingly, I have the pipes for this little pipe flat car. And this load actually sticks together. I don't know if it was intended to, and I guess if you had enough of these, you could have made a little pipe out of it. But each piece fits on one section of the flat car, right? And then, like I was saying, you can put them together. I'm really shocked that I had all the pieces to this one, but there it is. Another amazingly detailed cars there. Now, this is a piggyback car, and it came with two trailers, one for here and one for here, obviously. And if I remember right, the Silver Streak set had an intermodal facility where you could take, it was a little frame that went over the track, and then it had sort of a loading dock on the side, and you could pick the cars up with this little crane thing. It had a little twisty thing that would grab onto the piggybacks, and then you could put them over onto the side there. So that was kind of cool. And actually that is a pretty cool thing for a kid to have, because if you think about it, it introduces kids to the idea of how trains work and what they actually do. Because I know for me, it took me a long time to realize that trains are part of our critical transportation infrastructure. They were just these cool things that ran around, out places when I was a kid, and I would beg my parents to stop so that I could count the cars when the train went through the crossing. So let's go to the Caboose, our final piece here for the old trains. This is the matching Silver Streak Caboose. And something I would point out, because I recently did a review or a spotlight on an Atlas Caboose, and I was impressed that it had window glazing, because this is what I'm used to. See how the thing has no window glazing at all? Very impressive for Tyco from the 1970s. It looks like it might have separately applied brake wheels. It's kind of hard to tell. Actually, I think they're molded. But that's the Caboose. So let's move on to what I would consider, I don't know, something more like real models maybe? So
These are age appropriate.
I don't remember if I mentioned it at the beginning of the program, but when I was getting all my HO collection together in preparation for this video, I realized that I have more than I thought, and I don't think I'll be able to get through all of it in one sitting here, but I'm going to try. And I do have something else that had something to do with those other trains that I'll show you real quick here, which is the old Tyco Power Pack. And I don't know, but I'm guessing that it probably still works. Obviously, it hasn't been used in many, many years. This thing might even be some kind of a collector's item, for all I know. It's in very, very good condition, considering how old it is and the kind of care that it wasn't given when I was coming up in the world. So the next car I want to show you is going to bring us into something much more, what's the word for it? Something much more modern, or more like real models.
First.
Oh, got to do this one first. I forgot about these. These are some other models that I recently did a product spotlight on, like within the past few months. Going to set them up on the table here and then switch cameras so you can see them. I do like these though. This is one of those things where you got to have these on your layout, or else it'll just seem like there's something wrong, like there's something missing. So let me get them set up in a way that looks good here. And you'll probably recognize these from when they were on the product spotlight. And it is, here we go.
People Ford memories from the Tyco train.
Oh, good. A Ford F-150 and matching trailers. And this is one of those things, once again, where if you don't have this stuff on your layout, it probably seems a little naked, because if you go out anywhere, you'll see that there are cars everywhere in society, right? In our society, that's what we do. We drive cars. So there's a matching Atlas trailer. There's a police trailer. This one I think you're supposed to decorate on your own. And then there's this lawn care service trailer. Something I want to tell you, and a lot of people are going to cringe when I tell you this, but it's funny to me now, and it's something that I would never think of doing now, which is when I was a kid, I took those trains that I was just showing you, the Italian trains and the Silver Streak, that Tyco thing, and I actually set them up outside in the dirt because I wanted it to look as realistic as possible. And I thought, and when it was running out in the dirt for the few minutes that it worked, it looked pretty cool. So like I said, I would never do that now. So this is going to be a little bit harder to show because it's a bigger bunch of things here. But I'll do my best to show it. What I have here is a set. It's an articulated spine car, okay? And this is by Athearn. Can you see? Can you tell what that is? Let me just do it like this. Can you tell what that is? So,
I can only see the bottom one.
yeah. So we have, you know, they have just these little.
Point to the bottom one.
Oh. So one end has a wheel that then hooks on to this one up here, which has another wheel set, which then hooks on to. I'm just gonna have to do it up. I'll do it up here. This might be easier. How about like this? So this one is the only one that has two sets of wheels, or two trucks. The rest of them have only one because they're hooked together with basically a peg and a hole on the other one. And then in addition to these, I have the trailers that would go on them, which are these guys here. I can actually put these on the table and it'll look good. And these are very nice models. I've liked these ever since I got them. Let me do a picture here for you. As you can see, just got to change the angle a little bit. There are two regular trailers, and this one's sort of undecorated, but you see trailers like that out on the road. And this one's a refrigerated trailer, which is pretty cool. Has a refrigeration unit on the front there. And if I just been able to put the articulated spine car up here on the table, I would have been able to put these on the spine car and it would look really good. So moving on, give me a second here. This takes a while because we're doing it live and I'm having to retrieve cars, or the top secret production assistant is having to retrieve cars out of boxes. And one thing is these trailers have to go in specific things. This is one of my favorites. I really like this model a lot. What you're about to see on the screen here. Definitely one of my favorites, and I need to do something to keep better care of this. This is an MP15 DC by Atlas. It's in their gold series. It looks like the I've had it stored in one of these transport boxes by Athearn. So when you do that, it kind of squashes things, and the handrails are a little bent inward now. But this is definitely one of my favorite models, and the reason why is it has a lot of really great detail. And if you watch the channel, you've seen a product spotlight on this very model. It has things like this grill. That's a separately applied photo etched piece. And the grills up top here, those are also photo etched. So, and another cool thing about this model is it has its DCC and sound. So, definitely a favorite of mine.
You're liking the joy on your face when you unwrap these.
Unfortunately, the people aren't seeing the joy on my face because the camera is mostly on the video, on the table here. But isn't that a cool model? I really like this one a lot. What I should have done is had a little Lazy Susan on the table here so we could turn these. That would have been pretty cool.
Note for next one.
So the next one, here, you can watch me as I pull this one over. This will put some joy on my face. This is the next one, and it's another sort of favorite of mine. And it's the wrong era for me. This is a little old for me, but I still like it just because it's a cool model. This is an RS11. This is by Atlas also. Also has DCC and sound. It sounds really excellent. And if you search the channel for this one, you'll find a product spotlight on this as well. And it runs really, really well. Something I wanted to do, but it would never have worked because there's no way I could have juggled all the live switching of cameras and all that stuff and talking. I wanted to have a track out here and run the locomotives into the picture, with the sound on them, but maybe next time. or probably not, just because it's too much to handle. Should I turn this? Let's turn it or get a different view of it here. You can see that it has pretty good details. One of the coolest things I think on this one is all the very, very thin wire grabs. And if you look, you can see that these wire grabs here, one on this side and one on this side, are actually wrap around from the front to the side there. It's just a cool model. It's hard not to like this one. So, and like I said, that one's also DCC in sound. This is also a favorite of mine. I'm going to be saying that every model that you're watching here is a favorite of mine, because they really all are. I like my trains.
Who doesn't?
So getting it set up right. Who doesn't like his own trains, right? We're being told. This one is a Dash 8. That's called the Draper Taper, which is a special design of a Dash 8 that is a tapered body. And if you look here, it's kind of hard to, it might be kind of hard to see. This line on the roof here sort of shows you where the taper is. And if you look carefully, you can see that somewhere around here, the inside of the car body there tapers in, and then there's space for this toolbox and whatever this is. And this is a Rapido, and it also has DCC in sound. And this is kind of an unusual model because at one point in time, Rapido tried for what I'll call an attempt at doing a budget model, or something with less detail and that kind of thing. And it's a great model. So don't get me wrong, and I like it a lot. But it didn't really work because Rapido, that's just not their forte. Their forte is making highly detailed, very specific, and prototypically accurate models. So to try to do something that's on a budget line doesn't work. And again, I'll say it again. I don't mean that it's not a good model. I just mean that Rapido is much better at making really accurate prototypical models. And one of the cool things I like about this a lot is that it has working ditch lights. I think this might be the only HO scale model. Actually, it's the only HO scale freight engine that I have. No, it's not. It's the first one let's do it this way. It's the first one that I ever got that had working ditch lights. That's what it is. I had to think about that for a minute because I have other models that have working ditch lights. I can't see this back here. Now this next one is actually a set, and I have two of these sets. And I think what I'll do is I'll take these out one at a time and set them on the table here so you can see what they are. These are also favorites of mine. I think these might be the only HO scale. This is the only HO scale model of a locomotive that I have that still doesn't have DCC yet. But I do have the decoder. I actually have two decoders for it, and I'll explain that in a second. So what we're looking at here is the New Jersey Transit. I'm trying to remember what it is here. It's an ALP 45 DP. And what this is a prototype. Here's the difference between a coach and a cab car. Give me just 1 second. I'm adjusting the bit rate one more time, and this should give us something that's a lot more stable. Hopefully the picture will be good enough. Let's give this a try here. So, as I was saying, the cab car has these windows on the ends. And this is true of all cab cars. It'll have a window or a set of windows on the end. So this would be the rear of the train every time. Something else that's really cool is this has marker lights that come on when you're running it in the other direction. And when you're running it this way, cab car forward or cab car first, then the headlight would be on. And again, that's part of what I'm doing with the decoder when I put it in here. And the other thing about cab cars is on the other side, it looks like a regular coach. So that's how you can tell what a cab car is. You'll see things like a horn. You'll see the windows, right? Horn here, windows here. You'll see all that stuff on the cab car. So if you ever, sometimes, at least where I live, Caltrain and Ace both use cab cars because they do what they call push-pull style of running. And sometimes if you look carefully enough, you'll see that they have a cab car in the consist of regular passenger cars because they can be used that way too. But the main difference is it has a control stand and all the stuff that an engineer needs to run the train in reverse safely, basically. So I'm going to put this one away now, and we'll move on to our next model. At least I'm going to try to put it away carefully. There we go. What is the next model?
These?
Oh, yeah. Some more interesting stuff. Well, I think it's interesting. And I can show this along with the other, with those.
Short or long?
So check me out, man. I'm gonna set these all up here for you. This is gonna look familiar because some of these were on very, very recent product spotlights. So here we go.
Theodore.
Yeah.
Says, John, your show today caused me to dig my HO scale trains out of storage unit. Can't wait to go through the boxes like you are now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see the old stuff. Kind of takes you back, you know. It's one of those things to me, kind of like, I think we all have a connection with certain songs that when you hear a song, it just takes you back instantly to that day or that time in your life when that was a prevalent song. I know I have a lot of songs like that in my collection. Something else I want to mention over my shoulder here, that's a picture of the 1111 that came through our area yesterday. And that picture was taken by Kevin Hill at a place called Carnadero. And he was nice enough to send me that. So I put it up on the screen back there. So we have an extra bit of train action going on here. So anyway, let's look at this next model, or models as it were. These are containers and a well car. So again, most recently I did the product spotlight on these Atlas containers. These are 53 foot, or sorry, no, they're 45 footers, 45 foot containers. And the well car is by Athearn, and there's going to be a product spotlight on the well cars here fairly soon. I think it's the first weekend of next month or something, or the first week of next month.
Do you need this other well car?
But the way these work, obviously, I don't really need it, but let's just put it in here. The way these work is just like the real ones. And these well cars have little pegs in the bottom so that the containers don't shift around once you have them set in there properly. And then the way they would normally load these in real life is to have a big one on top and a small one on the bottom, like that, something like this. So, and we've seen these, you know, these stack trains, they're all over the place. It seems like that's all they run these days. That's not all they run these days, but it seems like it is. One thing I will mention is that these 40-foot containers down here, like this Yang Ming, are from some cheap brand that came out a while back. I think it was called Micro Rail with a K instead of a C. And these were really inexpensive. There was a product review of these sometime around 2017 when I got them for the channel here. And you know, they're not great, but if you have a port scene that you want to populate with a bunch of containers and you don't want it to cost too much, it's really a great alternative to spending a lot of money on the brand name ones that inevitably are going to cost you probably about 30 or 40 bucks for a set of 3, depending where you get them. Sometimes they're even more expensive. I like these a lot, the ones, because I've seen these out on the rails. Really, I've seen all of these on the rails.
And they're pink.
Why would I like them? Because
I like
they're
them
pink.
because they're pink.
Oh, no comments from the peanut gallery. Anyway, these are just your typical Husky stack well cars. There's really not a whole lot to say about them. We've all seen well cars in real life, and the models are just models of those. So, but they're well done, and they have a fair amount of weight to them. But I will say this: if I were ever to run a bare table train, it would have to be 100% bare table, because if you put any loads in these things, especially toward the rear of your train, it's going to stringline and you're going to have all kinds of problems. So that's one of those little tips, and it doesn't take long to learn that. No, I haven't done a stringline derailment, but I know how that works. Okay. So now on to some more of my favorites. These are cool, and the reason I think that, I'm going to do these one at a time. I've been filming these, or videotaping, whatever you want to call it, for many years now, because these have been the staple of Amtrak California's Capital Corridor service, the F59 PHI. And this particular one has DCC and sound in it. If I remember right, I put a ESU Select, I think, in this one, because it had the 8-pin plug-and-play board. So I added the sound, and I added the decoder just as a plug-and-play. I don't think I made a video of this one because it was so simple. I didn't think there was anything for someone to learn about it. The one thing I would like to be able to do on this one, and it's going to take some doing eventually, is I want the ditch lights to be able to alternate. The way it works as it is, the ditch lights just come on both at the same time, and it doesn't have the marker lights. If I remember right, it doesn't have marker lights when it's going the other direction. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So what that would take, obviously, is to hook up each, and that's the other thing, this has bulbs in it. So I'd have to, eventually when I do this project, I'm going to have to replace the bulbs with LEDs, which means I'm going to have to put resistors in there, depending on the decoder. Some decoders have built-in resistance, then what I'll have to do is wire each one of the ditch light LEDs to a separate function on the decoder function output. So whereas this has an 8-pin plug right now, I'd probably have to take all that out, put something in there, and this might be what I'll use my decoder buddy for. I talked about the decoder buddy a while back. That's that little board that has all the contacts on it, and then you can hardwire all your wires from your LEDs and stuff onto that board, and then your decoder just plugs onto it with a 21-pin plug. That's one of those things that it was sent to me as a sample last year sometime by the guy who invented these things, Nick Santo. And I've just been waiting for a project. What I would prefer to do is have a DC only locomotive and then use the decoder buddy to put in a 21-pin decoder. But this might be a good candidate for that project for the reasons I just explained. It's a really nice model. One of the things I really like about it is the Repower logo that came on. So it's a prototypically accurate representation of the 2014 F59 PHI. These are in the process right now of being replaced by something called the Chargers that are made by Siemens in Sacramento, which I think is pretty cool. And then the other F59 PHI that I want to share with you here is kind of special to me, and I'll explain why in a second. Let's get a picture of it first. This is the Surfliner 464. This is also an I think Surfliner is also Amtrak California. I may be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it is. And what's special about this one is this was the first passenger locomotive that I did a hardwire install. And it has a Soundtrax plug and play. I forget the actual number of it. But the reason why this one's kind of special to me is that I took this model after I installed the decoder. And by the way, I wired the lights on this so that the ditch lights can alternate, like I was explaining a minute ago with the other one. But I took this one with me to Sacramento last September, I think it was September, at the end of the N scale, or the narrow gauge convention that was being held in Sacramento at the time. And I met my friend George Bogatuk from Soundtrax, and he programmed it for me, and we did a video about that. Because if you look on the channel, you'll find a video of me installing the decoder into this locomotive. And the end of that program was me in Sacramento with George, where he programs it. And he put all the right sounds and got the ditch lights alternating just like I wanted. So that's one of these things where I don't know. I like it because this is the first model I think that I've had that has the alternating ditch lights, and I think that's pretty cool. And it's the same thing. It has bulbs in it still. I was thinking at the time when I did the DCC install on this one that I should do the LEDs also, but really what made my mind up on that was the video I was making wasn't about upgrading the lights. It was just about installing DCC and sound, and that's what I did. So, this next one's really cool. I have to be really careful.
Up with joy.
Yeah, I have to be really careful with this because it has so many very fragile and delicate parts on it. But it's such a cool model. Definitely one of my favorites for sure. You know, everything else is my favorite too, but this one is really one of my favorites. I don't know that I'll ever get to use it, to run it, but it is really cool. This is a Delaware and Hudson dome car from Rapido. And if you're not familiar with Rapido's models, this is a great example. Every possible detail that you could want on these things is there. And what I mean by that is, if you look inside the windows, you can see that each one has a different level of shades down. It has a fully detailed interior, including in the dome, and it's lit. It comes lit already. It's just an amazing model. And something else that they did with these was they do something to the paint to make it so it's not too reflective, so it doesn't look like the side of an aluminum can or something. And boy, they just did an amazing job with these models. And I want to turn it onto its side here to show you the amount of detail on the bottom is just insane. Look at all that piping and just all the components under there. This thing's crazy. I can never get over how amazing these things are. And I'm going to put the other camera over to the end here to show you this on the other side of this car here. Look at this thing. Look at all that stuff in there. That's nuts. You got your steam line here, and oh man, these things are crazy good. Now they're expensive. This thing's like $100, but as I've said in the past, what else could you put on this thing? So for the guys who like to detail out and customize and do all that stuff, this is probably something that they wouldn't want, because it would take away that part of the enjoyment that they get from the hobby. But for guys who don't have time or don't want to deal with all that, and they have the money for these, here's another cool thing. Check out the diaphragms. They're actually working diaphragms. Can you see that? But as I was saying, for guys who do have the money and don't have the time, this is great, because you just order one of these things and put it on the track, because it is fully detailed. So tell you what, man, that's definitely a high-end model. And
someone said says they thought the ditch lights alternated when the horn was sounded.
Yeah, the ditch lights on the F59 do alternate when the horn is sounded. That is correct. And that's how George set that one up for me, the F59, going back to the one we were just looking at a second ago. So now...
a magnetic switch to turn the light on and off?
Yeah, you know, I don't remember if this had the magnetic switch or not. I think this just comes on with track power. If you have the case here, can you tell me if it has a little wand in it?
Yep.
Oh, it does have a wand in it, so it is a magnetic switch. So, but the only other thing is I don't remember if it has batteries. That's something else. I'd have to look at it to see. But if you can find one of those dome cars, they're amazing, in case you didn't notice. Okay, so now we're on to one of my other favorite manufacturers. And these guys make awesome models. As a matter of fact, I guess I'll give you a spoiler. So spoiler alert, the next podcast that's coming out on the first weekend of June is going to have an interview with one of the people who is instrumental in the production of these models that I'm about to show you. So let me just set it down here on the table. We'll get a good shot of it there. And then I'll switch it over so you can see what it is. And again, a favorite. Now, not necessarily this specific car or this specific paint scheme, but the brand is for sure. This is, here we go. This is an Exact Rail Pullman Standard 5344 Boxcar. And this particular one obviously is decorated for the New Orleans Public Belt Railroad. And I'll go through it real quick and kind of show you some of the details. And I'm going to tell you something else. You'll notice that all of the models I'm showing you today are clean out of the box. And that's because I have not learned how to do the weathering yet. But that's something that I'm working on. I now have some pan pastels. I already had some acrylic paints for doing washes. I now have some dull coat. And I have some weathering powders. Thanks to my friend Pat Latorres. Thanks, Pat. I appreciate that. And let me know if and when you want those back. So if you're watching, maybe send me an email or something. But back to the model. This thing's cool. So this model has a lot of really great details on it. You can see all this separately applied stuff. And this is one of the coolest things on these models is this bar, this grab bar that goes across. That would be what your train person, your railman, whatever you want to call him, would hold if he needs to use the crossover platform to get onto this side. Or if he's getting on from this side and needs to get over here, he would grab on here and put his feet down here to walk across. That's a separately applied brake wheel. It has on the other side, you can see it kind of from down here. Here, let me just turn it. It'll be easier to see. It has the air hose right there. And look at the cut lever too. So it's really highly detailed. Something else really cool about these particular models is that the door track is a separately applied bunch of pieces too. Or if it's not separately applied, it really looks like it is. Just Exact Rail just does an amazing job on the details. And just, you know, and the other cool thing about Exact Rail is that they're super cool guys too. I've had a chance to go and hang out with these guys. They're just really cool. I met them for the first time a couple years ago when I was in Utah for the N-Scale convention. When I was in Utah for the N-Scale convention, we went down to Provo where Exact Rail is and hung out for a while, talked to them. And when we went back again, I believe it was last July, we went to Exact Rail / Train Life, and then Chris Brimley was the guy that I'm going to be interviewing on the podcast. Took us to one of the nicer layouts in the area, and we got to hang out there for an afternoon. It was just super cool. I mean, one of the really neat things about meeting these people is that you find out that they're super nice people as well as, you know, hardcore modelers, and that's who you want making your models if you're into this kind of thing, because they don't miss a lot of details. So that's the New Orleans belt version of this boxcar. We have another one here that is, I believe it's the same model, but a different road name. And this is, you're going to laugh when I say this, this is one of my favorite road names. The Rock. This thing looks awesome. There's just something about this paint scheme to me that looks cool. I don't know if it's the R, if it's the contrasting colors, the clever use of a little bit of blue right in here. It's just a cool logo. And I don't really know anything about this, this railroad, but I do know that their logo is cool, and I know it's an East Coast thing. But check this out. I didn't look at it on the orange one, but I do want to show off the bottom of this car because it's just cool. You got a lot of separately applied brake detail. Just a really nice model. Overall, it's just very well done. This is one of those things where eventually when I do weather this thing, imagine how good that's going to look if I don't mess it up. That's a big if, right? If I don't mess it up. Now I'm going to tell you a little trick that's really common sense, but I'll tell you anyway. And that is, when you're going to do something like weathering for the first time, go to the train show and buy the cheapest piece of junk you can find. Because if you do it on something good, like the cars that I'm showing you right now, you'll ruin them. And these are like $45 cars. So you don't want to ruin your nice models. Go to the train show, pick up what I call junk in the cheap box that some guy's selling because he's just trying to get rid of it, and practice on those. Then do it on your good stuff after you're comfortable with the techniques. And I would even say try it on a bunch of different colors to make sure you understand what the processes you're applying to them are going to do to the model. So like for example, I have some old piece of junk lifelike N scale stock cars, right? One of them is kind of yellow, like the model I'm showing you on the screen right here. So am I going to use this exact rail $45 car the first time I do yellow? Hell no. I'm going to use one of those crappy little lifelike cars, or maybe some Bachmann or something, junky cars that didn't cost much, or that I already had and have been ruined, like these other HO models that I have. And I'll practice on those. And when I'm really comfortable with that, then I'll do it on something like this. But again, this is another one of those Pullman standard box cars that we were looking at before. You can see all the extra details that they go through the trouble to add on these. Super nice models. So that's one of the brands that I really do recommend if you like stuff out of the box that's already detailed. Exact Rail is a great way to go for that. So let's put that one off camera here, and we'll move on. We'll move on to another one of my favorites. No, it really is. For real. This is here. Let me do it where you can't see it. This thing's amazing. This is a really cool model. Okay, it's hard to get the whole thing on the screen because it's so big. That's what she said. If Alvin's watching, that's what he's thinking right now. That's what she said. So here we go. This is, let me get my box here. This is by Atlas. It's a BX 177 60-foot boxcar. And something interesting about this is it has a ton of detail. And I think that at least most people, let's do it this way. I think that most people don't expect this level of detail, except I'm going to tell you something that you might not already know. But check this out. These thin wire grabs, right? Check out the treatment around the doors. This thing is a real masterpiece. All the writing on it is also legible. I did a product spotlight on this one sometime last year, if I remember right. Here's the cool thing. Check out all this detail on the end. Now, it's kind of dark in there. Let me see if I can make that a little brighter so you can see it. You have separately applied everything here, and a cut lever and the air hose as well. So this thing, oh, and by the way, look underneath. This thing's nuts. Lots of separately applied brake detail too. Easy for me to say, huh? This thing's crazy. So what I'm going to tell you about this that you might not already know is at some point, and I don't know the exact timeline, but at some point Atlas bought BLMA. So they own all of BLMA's old models. This is one of them. So you can get an Atlas model that's prior or previously BLMA, and this is the level of detail and, you know, that you're going to get with it. It's just crazy, crazy good. And there's another one that we'll be looking at that's very similar to this in a minute. That's also an Atlas / former BLMA. All the BLMA tooling is really finely detailed stuff that it comes with all the details you would want on a car like this. So let's go to, this is going to look a little bit familiar because we just looked at one from Tyco that, let me just grab it here.
Nope.
Oh, that's that one.
This is
Here. Okay, here we go. Let me set it down here. It's similar anyway. The paint scheme is the same as the one we were just looking at. And I told you that was one of my favorite paint schemes when I was a kid. It still is. I don't know why I like it so much, but it's this. This is a Burlington Northern Precision Design 50-foot ribside boxcar. This is also by Atlas. This is not one of the BLMA or former BLMA models, and you can tell because it doesn't have the cut lever on the end and it doesn't have the air hose. So there's something that you could do with this one. But I will say that everything else about this model is really cool. It has doors that open, and that's on both sides. As you can see, this one also opens. If I can do it without breaking something here. Let's do it with my, there we go. Very cool model. And this is another one of those that I'm really looking forward to someday, eventually, weathering. Because, you know, you never see a BN boxcar that looks like this. Especially not nowadays, because this thing hasn't had a fresh coat of paint in many, many years. So, well, I mean, the model has, but the ones on the railroad haven't. So, again, super nice car. This one also has a fair amount of detail, brake detail on the bottom. Very nice car. See, I have to be really careful now because these are very fragile. These are very fragile. Now, let me see if I can do this without breaking something. Oh boy, how do you do this? Wow, all right. This is a model that's turning me into what I call a tank car foamer. Because look at this thing. It's beautiful. That one, let me get the box here. This is a Trinity 17,600 gallon corn syrup tank car decorated for ADM. And this one is another BLMA or former BLMA, now owned and made by Atlas. So if you want to get one of these, you can find this from Atlas. And you can see it has the cut lever. You can see it has the air hose. This thing is bananas. It is so finely detailed. And you can see stuff as it's rolling down the track. All that brake detail underneath. God, I love this model. So there's something about tank cars, and something I've noticed about tank cars is that they tend to be more expensive than a lot of your other rolling stock. And I think the main reason for that is because all that stuff underneath it has to be separately applied to look right, and it's visible as it's rolling down the track. So there's a lot to to admire on a car like this. And you have to be really, really careful when handling these, because one wrong move, and those parts are so delicate that it would be easy to break them. And there are some models that have come out with metal, and this might be one of them. I haven't tested it. I'm not going to push my luck here. But some models have come out with metal railings like this and on the ends here, so that they're more durable, so that you don't break them. But that is a cool car. Tell you what, be extra careful with that one.
I know.
So we have another one coming up here, and you won't be surprised to hear.
True love when you allow me to repackage.
Yeah. You won't be surprised to find out that this is one of my favorite models. When you see what it is. This is a Norfolk Southern Top Gun gondola. NSG 85R Top Gun. And this one has an uncoupling lever, but it doesn't have the air hose. So I'm figuring this one's probably just an Atlas Gold Master Series. Not Gold, Master Series. That's what they have. But again, you know, this is one of those things where you have your fine wire grabs. Ah, this one's really nice. And if you look inside, it has all those little bracing supports in there. What a cool model. They didn't have to put that in there. There's also rivet detail inside. And if you look on the bottom, it has really no brake detail, but it does have discharge gate detail. And I guess the story on these, the real, you know, the prototypes, is that these were used for coal or something like that, because NS was, they ran out of coal cars or something, so they had a bunch of these converted, or I don't remember the story, but it was in the documentation for the model, and it was on the website as well. But it's lots of really nice detail. And again, that's another Atlas model. I have a lot of Atlas. You know I do, because I do a lot of product spotlights on Atlas models, including the next one, which is another one of these former BLMA models, now Atlas. And this is the, if I remember right, I'm going to go by memory and then I'll check the box, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I think this is a BX166 boxcar. So, is it?
BX166.
BX166, 60-foot boxcar, just like I thought. It has the dual plug doors there. And this is another one of these that has all the really fine details on the ends. I'm going to see if I can get the other camera zoomed up to this thing, because I think it's worth pointing out, right? If we have something this cool. I think I got a good shot of it here. Let's take a look. Look at all that separately applied detail and how fine the wires are on this thing, the grabs and all that. What a cool model. And underneath, you know what I'm going to say. Underneath, look at this. It has all the brake detail.
Somebody was wondering,
isn't that nuts?
Why they bothered to do that, because it
I love
just
this.
makes the model more expensive.
You know, it does make the model more expensive, but when it's rolling down the track, look, this is why they do that. This is what you'd see if you were at track level. All that stuff shows. So, you know, I mean, I guess if you don't want it, you could always find a cheap car and just buy something less expensive. But tell you what, that looks pretty damn good rolling down the tracks with all that detail visible from the side. Something else that is mind-blowing on these boxcars, the BX177 was like this too, is look at all the detail around the doors. All those latches and everything. I love these things, man. That's a cool model right there. So I'm going to show you another one of my favorites when I find it. Whoops.
I'll take that. You want to take that one?
Nope. These came out last year, and I have a few of them to share with you. If it's what I think it is, let me just double check. 99% certain I know what this one is. Yeah, it didn't come out last year, but it was another run of these fairly recently. I thought this was the appliance car, but it isn't. This is your, here we go. Oh, that's me. I did it backwards. I think that's the first time I messed up. Here we go. It's a Berwick 7440 boxcar. This one is... Oh, yeah, this one's decorated for Conrail. This is another exact rail model. And, you know, looking at this with the magnifying glass, all the writing here and in the COTS block, all the stuff is legible. And the door detail on it is pretty cool, pretty good. These are really nice models. And you can see they come with the air hose, and they come with the cut lever. And it's all separately applied parts on here. The door track looks like a separate piece. It's kind of hard to tell for sure without my magnifiers on. But there's your separately applied brake wheel. What a cool model. This is what I'm talking about, man. Exact Rail makes really good stuff. And, you know, weathering this and seeing this on a model train, it'll look like a real car. That's a cool model right there, man. The doors don't open, but that's okay. I don't really care about that.
Grain Express says that we're old enough, so just take off the glasses and you won't see all the detail. Oh,
that's a good point. Someone else told me that they have what they call the 4-foot rule, which is if it looks good enough from 4 feet away, it's good enough for them, because that's where they're going to see it when they're looking at their layout. I can understand that. There's still something to be said, though, for really finely detailed models like these. This is another favorite of mine.
John.
All right, and I have a couple of these, but in different paint schemes. I love this one. You ready for this? Look at that. Pullman Standard 7315 Waffle boxcar. This is another exact rail model. It's a nice color, isn't it? Blue isn't my favorite color, but it sure looks good on this model. Tell you what. And like all exact rail, this has the great detail on it. Unfortunately, I keep not putting the brake end over here. Let's put the brake end over here, and I'll switch cameras so that you can see it from here. This is just a really nice model. Lots of separately applied detail. And, you know, you got your hose, right? You got your cut lever, photo etch crossover platform, separately applied brake wheel. This is a high cube. That's why it has the white up here. This is a cool model. And the other cool thing is that even though it has all the perforations, you know, on this waffle side, all the writing on this thing wraps around those completely, and you can read all of it. There's no gaps or anything in those. And then the door detail on these double plug doors, that's some cool latch detail. It's all separately applied. You know, I mean, there's some molded stuff underneath, but then the separately applied stuff on top really completes the look. That's a nice model. And once again, do you see it? You see the brake detail on the side? This is your track level. That's your track level viewing angle. And there it is. All the brake detail. It'll be easier to see on the model I'm about to show you. It's the same thing, but it's a different color. I actually have one more of these that we'll look at as well. That's another cool model right there. Milwaukee Road. And you can see on this one, I think you can see a little better because it's not a dark color, all the perforations. But that's also, let me just triple check, but I'm 99% certain that this is also the same kind of a waffle side boxcar. Yep, it's a Pullman Standard 7315 waffle boxcar. So, and you know, like I was saying before, it's also exact rail. It's the same model, it's the same run, it's just a different paint scheme. But I think you can see the details underneath a little better on this one just because it's a light color instead of a dark color. As I've noticed that details like that kind of get lost in the shadows. That's one of the challenges that I have when I'm doing my product spotlight videos, is being able to show all this detail, because you have to light it very carefully to be able to see all that stuff. And that's a really cool model. There's another one here, and There we go. Look, I keep doing this. I keep putting the brake wheel on the wrong end. Isn't that cool? One of the things I like about this one is how the coupler box is a different color. It's actually yellow instead of green. But
hey, Miguel wants to know if you're going to add a steam engine to your...
Is that Miguel Chavez?
Yep.
Miguel. By the way, everybody, Miguel gave me the idea of doing this show and tell thing. I'm pretty sure he wanted to see N scale. But we'll get to that later at some point. And the answer to the question is I don't have any specific plans about adding a steam locomotive at this point. And there's actually a good reason for that. Let me switch over to me so you can see me here. The reason why I like steam engines and all that, but I am more interested in stuff that's long after the transition era. I think what I'm going to end up modeling as the time comes, because this is one of the things you need to consider when you're getting started, is what do you want to model? What era do you want to model? And I really like stuff that's post 1970. I like it as up to current day because I can go out and see these things on the rails. So I would like to model something that I can go out and see because it makes getting, reference photos and that kind of thing a lot easier, especially if you're modeling something that it was on the rails after the advent of digital cameras, because the number of photos you can find, reference photos and reference material you can find is mind-numbing, because digital cameras, unlike film cameras, you don't have to pay to develop it. So people just go crazy with those things. So anyway, back to the model real quick. Oh, actually, I don't really have anything else to say about this one. It's really the same as the other Waffle side cars we were looking at. So we'll move on to the next one. So this next model is also
People want to know if you ever try to get rolling stock that has reporting marks from acquired short lines.
I don't try specifically for anything. The way I figure it is that eventually if I want to have a model like that, I can always eventually patch it and do that kind of decal work myself. So really what I'm after right now is just stuff that I can buy. I'm kind of a collector in a way, because when I go to run my HO trains on the SBHRS layout, for example, I take my power there. So I'll take a locomotive or a couple of locomotives or whatever I feel like running, and I'll just pull around whatever they have there. I'm not a stickler for, oh, it's the wrong year, or that boxcar has a roof walk and you're using a newer locomotive to pull it. I don't really care. I just want to see a train get pulled around. As long as it's not, like a 40-foot wood car, that really would look out of place. So I'm a little bit of a stickler, but not like some people. And, I understand people want to be prototypical, and that's great. It's your layout, do what you want, right? Hey man, it's my layout, as they say. So anyway, this one is, let me get the box. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. It's from Exact Rail. I already know that. I think I told you. This is an Evans 5277 boxcar. And it says it's a late model. So I'm guessing it probably has some patching on it somewhere. Oh, I know why it says that, because it has the conspicuity stripes. See all these little yellow deals here? Those are conspicuity stripes, and those didn't show up until later. You can see them better from this angle. That's so that people driving don't run into the train, because they have these yellow reflectors on the side. Anyway, this is another Exact Rail product, so you can see it has all that nice detail that we've been looking at on the other Exact Rail models. Separately applied brake wheel and etched crossover. It's all separately applied stuff. The grabs on the ends are very thin and to scale. What a nice car. And again, you have your brake detail, just to make it expensive for the person that was complaining about the brake detail on the bottom.
And we have a few N-scale modelers that are very sad that you're not sharing N-scale. But I let them know. Yeah, don't be sad I'm not sharing N-scale. Think of it this way. I'm saving the best for last. And that'll be on a different program. So we decided, because of the size of the collection, to do them on a different program. So the next time is, the next time that we do one of these,
assuming we get through all of the HO scale this time, which it looks like you probably will. We only have really just have a few left. But as soon as we get through this, then I'll be able to stage the N scale stuff. Let me explain what I mean, because over here there's a countertop off to my right, and it was full of HO scale models. Like I said before, when I started taking stuff out and getting it ready for this show, I was like, damn, where did I didn't know I had that much stuff. And some of my stuff isn't even here, which I'll explain in a minute when we get to that model. But so, you know, the entire counter was full of HO stuff. So I didn't have a place to stage the N scale stuff. This is not a huge studio that I work out of. So we'll do the N scale stuff next time. I think I'm going to try really hard to get through the rest of this HO stuff now. So back to here. Again, it's your brake detail that we were talking about before. And that's, you know, this is what you get from Exactrail. These are really, really, really nice models. Okay.
Yes, people are appreciating Exactrail.
Yeah, I think Exactrail...
Special Train Life exclusive.
Yeah, I think Exactrail has a lot to be appreciative for, because they do great models. And when you see the interview with Chris that I was talking about earlier, you'll see why they do them. Because he's a very... I'm trying to think of the word for it. He's just a really sort of studious guy. Very, very good at paying attention to detail.
Good at his job.
He's good at his job, and he's a super cool dude too. So that counts. So let's take a look at this one. Here we have a Gunderson 6269 boxcar. And this one was a special from Train Life, and I'll explain that here for a second. So the way Train Life does this, or the way Exactrail does this, Exactrail and Train Life are related. They operate out of the same building in Provo, Utah, and Exactrail is really about prototype-specific, highly accurate models. So when you see a model that was a Train Life exclusive from Exactrail, that usually means that they've created a model that's a plausible or an accurate model for one particular paint scheme, but then they put other paint schemes on that same model, and then they sell it as a special exclusive to Train Life. Because if it was going to be straight from Exactrail, they won't do it that way. They will only do a very prototypically accurate one. So it's kind of an exception to that rule, and it allows them some creativity. And I think my impression, and he may have told me this at one point, is that the guy who designs this stuff, Chris, actually likes it that way, because it allows him to do some stuff that's not really prototypical, and it's just for fun in a way. But these are still highly detailed and perfectly executed cars, or, you know, models. And I'll show you by showing you the model. So it's what you would expect from Exactrail. It has great, oops, boy, don't want to do that. It has great detail all in this door area. The door track is also, it looks like a separately applied piece. I think it is on this one. All the writing and everything is very crisp. So everything you would expect to see from an Exactrail car is there. It doesn't have the cut lever, but it does have the air hose. So it's like Exactrail light, if you want to think of it that way. But what a great car, though. And again, it's the Burlington Northern, which, as you know, from a very early time in my life, was something that I've always appreciated. So it's one of my favorite models. Should I say that? One of my favorites. Okay, so let's get that one out of there. Yeah, that is really cool. Oh, I forgot to show you the brake detail. What a nice model. Okay, so
going with a bit of a theme here.
We are?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm told we're going with a bit of a theme. I'm not sure what it is yet. But this is a really cool one. I like this one a lot. I might even go as far as to say it's one of my favorites. Sound familiar, huh? check this guy out. Let's do it that way. Here we go. This is a prototypically accurate car. This is a Johnstown, America Auto Flood 2, and it's a special military veterans unit. So that's why it's red, white, and blue. And this actually does run around someplace. I've never seen it in person, but I do want to.
You can share a photo if they've taken it. Share it on Facebook.
That's a good idea. If you have a picture of one of these cars running around, or this car, I think there's only one. If you have a picture of one of these or this one, post it or send it to me on Facebook or something so I can post it. But check this thing out, man. It is really cool. If you look on there, you can see, I'm trying to make sure it's in focus there, but you can see, this is the cool thing about this, is it has all these little, what do you call these? Shields? What do you call these things? The name's escaping me right now. It's a it's a logo, but there's another name for it. It's a seal. That's what it is. It's a seal for each branch of the military. And this is another one of these models that everything's legible. It's a super cool. Just cool.
Fell out 3 pieces.
What did?
I think a coupler came off.
Oh no. Oh, those are just, yeah, just make sure they're in there.
Yeah, they're in there.
Anyway.
A near emergency.
We had a problem there for a minute. Luckily, it wasn't too urgent of a problem. At least I don't think it was. Probably what'll happen is I'll finish what we're doing here, and then next time I go to use one of these things, I'll like, hey, there's parts missing. No. And then I'll be calling the top secret advisor to find out what's going on. But check this thing out, man. This is a really cool model. It's kind of hard to see because it's all black. Like I was saying earlier, when you have dark colors like this, stuff gets lost in the shadows. But I'll see if I can try to... It's really hard to show. But there's all kinds of brake detail back in here. Recessed back in. It's hard to... It's really hard to show. It's recessed back in here, though. Bunch of brake detail. And then that's a photo etched crossover. That's a separately applied brake wheel. These are really great models. Another cool thing with Exact Rails, they come with Cct couplers. So the coal load is removable. I hate doing this. Here we go. It was easier than I thought. And if you look inside, it came with bracing detail that you can install if you're going to run this thing empty. I left mine in there because I don't know how I'll run it. I haven't really run this car yet. So I left it in there and just left the load on there. It's a little extra weight. Yeah, that's what it is. But you can see down here, whoops, I'm going to try to show you the discharge gate detail. That looks really good. So another really excellent model from Exact Rail. These guys do really good work. All right. Oh boy. Here's one of the newest editions, and it was on there before the screensaver came on. Maybe you can wake the screen up again.
I can't without your password.
You can't? Oh, I think you know the password. You saw it on the screen behind me. Now you're going to see the model of it. This comes from Athearn Genesis. And I'm going to say something about this model because it's the Powered by Our People Union Pacific 1111. And, you know, there's a lot of mixed feelings about the real one of these because people are angry at the furloughs and that kind of thing that are happening from Union Pacific. And it's hard for me to get completely angry with them because they're just running their business, whatever is the best way they see fit. Probably not the same way I'd run it, but I'm not running the railroad, so it's not my decision. What I will say is that it is a really cool paint scheme. I think it's the way it's designed is nice, and it looks good, and I think that it sort of represents the jobs that they're trying to show very well. and all that. But a lot of people are angry with Union Pacific because, and they call this the furlough unit, some people. That's your right. It's your decision if you want to call it that. I'm not going to tell you not to. I understand the frustration, because if I just got furloughed, I wouldn't be very happy about it either. Looks like the rail is coming off there. Let's put that back in. One of the cool features on these models, it's an SD70 Ace. Should mention that. Or ACE, however you want to say it. The cab roofs come off because they make different variations on the cab roof. And this one happens to have the CTC array on it. Or a PTC array, rather. Excuse me. Yes, I do know what I'm talking about sometimes. But if you look in there, you can see it also has a detailed interior, which is pretty cool. If you wanted to, you could light up the instrumentation panels. Pretty cool. But it's a nice model. I think the Athearn Genesis, this might be a Genesis 2. No, I think it's just an Athearn Genesis. They have a lot of great details. This is a DCC and sound equipped model. It has Soundtrack's Tsunami 2 in it, which sounds really great. I'm looking forward to running this one at the SBHRS eventually, when the SBHRS is open for running the trains again. But you can see it has all the jobs on it like I was talking about. It's just a really cool paint scheme. I've always liked, I like most of the Heritage units. I'm not particularly fond of the Southern Pacific one. I think it wasn't how I would have done it. We'll put it that way. I could think of a lot better ways to honor Southern Pacific than the Southern Pacific Heritage unit that they came up with. But, you know, in the end, they didn't have to do anything. And that's something that we could all remember, because they did choose to have something more interesting. And I think as someone who goes out to look at trains, that's a cool thing to have. Like, could be that all of their models were armor yellow. Models as in the ones that are actually out on the rails. Okay, we have another train coming here.
Oh, I have this.
Oh, there's one here.
Yep, right here.
Yeah, see, I wasn't sure that we would go this long. And I didn't really want to get into these. I was going to save these for another episode, because locomotives are much harder to get out of the box and get ready to show on screen here. And because all the rolling stock was taking up all the space on that shelf I was talking about earlier, we're going to have to do the locomotives, and it's going to take a little bit longer that way because of how we're having to do it. We're having to unpack each one now to show. But I got a great,
that's the way I can do it.
Got a great view of this one. Check this guy out. Yeah. So this is a, let me get my box here. This is an Athearn ready to roll SD40. And yeah, I really wish I could show you these things on a powered track, because the beacon lights up on this. This has LEDs in it, and this also has Soundtrack sound. This one, if I remember right, has the Econami, and it came with a whole bunch of detail parts here that I still haven't really looked at. I recognize these right away as drop steps, so that you can model the drop steps in up or down position. These I need to read the instructions, because there's a lot of different stuff on here. A lot of it looks like under sill details. But I actually have run this one, and one of the cool things that I've been noticing on a lot of the newer models these days is that they have the armrests too now. They didn't used to have armrests. So in this case, it has the armrest and the sunshade and the wind deflectors. It has all of it. So there's not really a lot to add, you know, around the cab here. It also has a plated over headlight here. I don't know the specifics of this particular unit, but if it's a Athearn, it's probably highly accurate. Also note Chris from Athearn. I've known him for a few years now, and he's another one of those guys who's very, very, I want to say nitpicky, but that's the wrong word, because nitpicky kind of has a negative connotation to it. At least it does to me. But he's very detail oriented, yeah. And he also does really good work putting these models together for Athearn. Well, I know that he has something to do with that. To be honest, though, I'm not entirely sure what his position. I think he's more in the marketing side of things, but he knows about all this stuff. And he, like, for example, he'd be able to tell you, and I know this one because I did check this out, that the stenciled Southern Pacific, that is accurate. If you looked at this and didn't know any better, you would think, oh, they messed up. There's, it's supposed to be speed lettering or have the official logo or something. But no, this is accurate for this number. I remember because when I did the product spotlight on this model, I checked just because I was curious. Now, product spotlights to me are more of showing people what's there and not necessarily talking about what's not there or what's wrong with it. Because I think that if you're a good modeler, you can probably fix, little stuff like that or super nitpicky details. Here's another shot of it, but from the higher angle. It's a very nice model. I did not take the foam off of this side, so let me get that out real quick and get a better look at it. It's a cool model, and I'm gonna tell you something that you're expecting. This is one of my favorite models, only because it's Southern Pacific and it fits in with the kind of era that I'm interested in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these back in here, and we'll switch out to another one real quick. Something I'm really looking forward to, because I have a few Southern Pacific models now, locomotives, and I'm really looking forward to getting them all speed matched and running them together. So I think that will look really sharp. Okay, hold on. Is this one?
Here. Yep.
What's this one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's empty. Okay. Oh, don't pick it up by that part. That'll come off and it'll drop. All right. Yeah, we have the tunnel motor. I know what this one is. I don't even need to check my notes. Let me see if I can get this on the screen here. Yeah, this is a really cool model. Let's do that. So that's an SD45 T-2. That's what people call a tunnel motor. And wait, is this? I'm getting confused. This is this, right? All here?
Yes.
Okay. So tunnel motors. What's a tunnel motor? See this back here? This was designed so that when these locomotives were going through the snow sheds on Donner Pass, the air down here tends to be cooler than the air up here. So the intake was placed lower. And to my knowledge, it worked. So this is a neat design. They also have SD40 T-2s. Those are the SD40 versions of tunnel motors. And yeah, it's a cool model. They call this is an Athearn model. They call this primed for grime. And what that means is that they've applied a lighter color of gray, so it appears to be faded. And in this case, they've also faded the logo on the side too ahead of time. So really all you have to do is put a lot of dirt and grime on something like this. And, if there are some details that you want to add, of course, that would be up to you. But this is one of those models that is going to be coupled with the other, or paired with the other Southern Pacifics that I have. And you'll notice it also has that armrest that I was talking about. So Sunshade armrest, wind deflectors, just like the other model we were looking at a minute ago. Something I noticed when I did the product spotlight on this one is the paint treatment on the grills. There's extra paint put on these that makes them have more depth. They look really, really good. And the other thing I noticed when I did the product spotlight on this is how the wire grabs are really thin, fine wire grabs. And something else on this model, which again, sorry I can't show you because it's not on a powered track, but the beacon also works on this one. This model also has a Soundtrax Economy decoder in it. So if you can imagine what that's going to look like running with the one we were just looking at, that's really cool. And I have another one that we're going to look at here a little bit later. It's the SD35. Yeah, let's get that one out sometime soon. Okay. Yeah, let's get that one. Let's get that one now. I want to show you all the bloody nose locomotives, because this is the only other one. This was on a recent product spotlight, and I'm just going to take it out because it's actually screwed in. Oh. Yeah, it's screwed into the case.
Hey, Human City wants to know what kind of shotgun mic you're using.
Oh, yeah, this is some off-brand that was sent to me to do a product review on by this company. I didn't want to advertise for them. Comica. So that's what that is. If I were going to recommend a microphone for what I'm doing here, I would recommend the Audio Technica that I normally use. I take those with me everywhere, and I use them on all my layout tours. This is the one that I use here in the studio, just because it's bigger, and the other ones are more compact, but I think they perform better. This is a good microphone, though. If you need one, though, Audio Technica is probably the best way to go from what I've seen. So this is, let me just set it down on the table here. I took a little bit of crap for this one. Let's do this. Okay. This is an SD35 by Atlas, and the crap that I took on this one, but that sounds wrong. I didn't take a crap on it. What I mean is, sorry about that. People were whining about this because it doesn't have the SP Lite package. They're like, well, why didn't you mention that? So the answer to the question is, I know it doesn't have the SP Lite package. It's the first thing I noticed when I opened it, right? But like I've said before, Product Spotlight isn't about picking it apart and telling you what's wrong with it. It's about showing you what's there and focusing on the good stuff, because I trust you as an intelligent person to know what you're looking at. You know, you don't need me to tell you, oh, look, it doesn't have a light package. Look how smart I am, right? Yeah, I noticed, but why should I rag on the thing? It's a cool model. Anyway, it's a cool model. And if you want to add a light package to it, add a light package to it. What I will say is that it has DCC and sound, and it sounds really excellent, and all the details on it look good. What's there looks good. So, and again, I'm not going to take it out of this little cradle thing, but I will show it to you this way. I love and hate these cradles. I love them because they really protect the model really well. I mean, I don't know that you can protect a model better than locking it in place like this. But I hate them because they're a pain in the butt. If I want to take this model down to the SBHRS, I got to remember to take a screwdriver, or when I get there, I need to find a screwdriver just to get the model out of the cradle. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. But at least I know when we get there, it won't be damaged, because these things really do hold the models well. But here's what I'm dreaming of, okay? Those other two bloody nose SP models that we just looked at, and this one running together, that's going to look really cool. All right, so we're almost at the end. Yep. And it's a good thing, because we've been going for almost 2 hours. I did not want to do this long today, but here we are. So here's one that's kind of cool. I want to tell you, this is one of my favorites. It really is, though. This is a cool model. This is a special Southern Pacific. It's a little bit out of the era that I'm really interested in, but it's cool nonetheless. And this is a GP. Excuse me. Where is this thing? I can never remember if it's a 7 or a 9. It's a GP9. And you'll notice it's kind of a weird paint scheme. It's black, right? And you should be able to tell that the front there, let's try it this way. You can really tell on this one. It's orange, right? This is what some people refer to as the Halloween unit. And apparently this was some kind of an experimental paint scheme that Southern Pacific was trying for a while. I think probably because they wanted to economize on paint and make it easier. Because the alternative to this is the Black Widow, which I had another one of these that was from the same production run that is a Black Widow. And I should also mention these are Athearn. Let me see. Yeah, Athearn Genesis. The Black Widow model is on the Goofy Gary Pacific in Sacramento. He was kind enough to trade some GP35s in N scale to me. So he has a layout for which the Black Widow version of this model is very appropriate for. So I said, here, you can have this until you don't need it anymore. So if you look here, you'll notice it does have the little armrest, like I've been pointing out, sunshades, wind deflectors, just like the others. And there's a lot of really fine details on the Genesis models, including the windshield wipers, which are separately applied parts. And I think they're metal pieces even. But the cool thing, or one of the cool things, is what we were just saying the other one didn't have. And what is that? The light package. This one has the light package on the front and on the back. So, and I'll have to tell you this, that was one of the first things I noticed when I pulled this one out of the box. Because when you pull out an SP model, especially one from this era, you look for that. Well, I do. You look for that. It has to have the package, and if it doesn't have the package, it needs to be plated over or something so that it looks like an SP unit. So that's the Jeep 9.
AT 2020, AT 2021.
AT.
About the last.
I don't know what AT. What's AT 20 and AT 2021? Maybe we can get a clarification on that.
I don't know. That's Human City. Maybe he's talking about the microphone.
Oh no! Right, he's talking about the microphone. Okay. No. Tell you what, if you send me an email asking about the microphone, I'll send you a link of which ones I use. A link you can go straight to Amazon and get one if you want to, because they're very, very good microphones. And if you like external microphones like I do, that's a great way to go. So here's something that's a little different. I remember what it is, but can I see the box? I just want to make sure. This is an Alko, so this is also out of my... Really, it's out of my area of interest. It's here, let me put it down on the desk here. And this is another Atlas, so it's going to be screwed into the box. I'm surprised no one has made a stupid joke yet about being screwy with these models. Oh wait, that's because I'm not. That's because I'm not in the chat window. That's why. Here. Which Mike?
Ninneman.
Oh, Mike Ninneman's on here. Hi, Mike. Hope everything's going well.
He would probably make that comment.
He might make that comment. So this is an Ohio Central C420 Alko, and this also is DCC and sound. It's a really nice model. It's a great runner. I did a product spotlight on this. I don't remember when. It wasn't too long ago. It was probably like 6 months ago, something like that. But that's a C420 Phase 2B low nose. So I guess the C420s also had the high nose variant. But again, it's an Atlas. It's a super nice model. It's screwed in the fuel tank. So not sure what I'll end up doing with this one. I think this would be a great candidate, though, for maybe an early weathering job on it. When I say early, like when I'm comfortable enough doing the weathering, I may try it on this one, just because it's not one that I care as much about as like the Southern Pacific ones. So that's something that I'll probably do at some point. So let me put this away. Did I mention that one also has DCC and sound? And it sounds excellent. This actually would be kind of cool to run with the RS11, just because they're both Alkos and they would sound good together. Oh, actually, let's have this red, white, and blue one next. This is also out of my era, but this holds a special place in my heart. I'll tell you why in a second. It'll look familiar if you've been watching the channel since 2018 or 2017. I'm just setting it down. This one's also screwed into a case, so we're just going to look at it in the case. But I'll tell you about this one because it's kind of a cool story. Let's just do it this way. Here we go. So it's a U36B, and it's the Seaboard Coastline Bicentennial unit. And the reason why this one is special to me is this one came to me as a DC model, DC only. And this was the very first ever HO scale model that I added DCC and sound to myself. And if I remember right, I used a sound or a ESU Select with an 8-pin decoder, and it was just a plug and play. So the speaker's back in here, and it's, if I remember right, it's one of their little sugar cube speakers. I was pointing at the model, but you couldn't see it because you were looking at me. The speaker's back in here, and it's one of those sugar cube speakers. It sounds really good, and I've got to tell you that when I put this model on the track for the first time after putting the decoder in and it worked, I just got such a thrill because it's like, hey, I did it, you know, because I hadn't done an HO scale model before. And I also have to tell you that when I did that, I also realized, now don't hate me for this, N scalers, I also realized that HO scale is way easier to work on. Because prior to doing this model, I had only done N scale models, you know, using those little board replacement decoders. And they're pretty easy and everything. And if you know how to do it and you know what to do, you can add sound. You know, you can put a speaker in there, and they never sound as good as I want them to, the N scale ones. But that's just because I haven't been really aggressive with milling the frame and putting an enclosure and all that. That's something that I have in my mind to do that. I have some N scale models that have space for an enclosure in the cab area. And I'll be showing you those the next time we do one of these show and tell videos when we go through the N scale collection. But this HO model was so much easier to add all the pieces to because there's a lot of space. Now, there's another bloody nose, and I wish I had remembered this because we should have looked at this last time. Why don't you just hand me that whole thing?
Yeah, oh, hold on.
You're getting the foam pieces out?
Pulling out all the little...
Yeah, well, be super duper careful because that thing is... This next one has a lot of really fine, delicate details, and it's amazing. So now, just by me telling you that, you must realize probably already that it's a Rapido. Remember I was talking about the Dash 8 earlier, the Draper Taper, and how I like it, and it's a great model, but it has less detail, and it's just not quite as nice. Those come off the wheels. Just here, why don't you set that down here? I don't want to touch it. Set it down there and I'll move it around. Okay, so you may recognize this from a fairly recent product spotlight that I did. I got it here. This thing's crazy good. The detail on it is just outstanding, and it runs really well too. So here we go. If you've been watching the channel a lot, you probably already know what you're about to see. And I want to run this with those other bloody nose locomotives. I wished I'd remembered. I didn't. That's what happens to you when you get to be a certain age. Don't look forward to that. Here it is. The Rapido B36-7. Isn't that thing beautiful? It has so much detail on it and so much fine, super duper small scale stuff. I mean, like the brake chain. Can you see that? It's kind of hard to tell if you can see that on my editor here, but that is crazy.
Some hosers on here saying he likes your shirt.
Oh, this shirt? Yeah, I picked this up out of a trash can. See? You know that guy. I picked up out of the trash can that he was sleeping in, and I felt sorry for him, so I picked him up too.
Paul sent you a nice little picture.
This is the shirt we're talking about. I follow Sparky 107. You know that guy. All right, back to the model. That's what you really want to see. I'm not much of a model. So, looking at this Rapido model, the thing's crazy good. It has all kinds of great detail. It has a lot of undersill detail that a lot of models like this don't have. And I'm going to try to tip it up here a little bit so you can kind of see down there. Can you see all this stuff down here? all these piping and stuff, and there's like brake detail. The air reservoir has a moisture ejector, or actually I think that's what this is. I don't remember. I don't know all these parts down here. Maybe you guys can tell me what those are. It has an exploded view drawing, so I suppose if I wanted to, I could sit down and learn all that stuff. But how much fun would that be? I'd rather run this thing.
Just ask people on Facebook instead.
Yeah, I'll just ask people on Facebook instead. It's much easier to get the answers that way. There's plenty of people who want to be the answer man. So if you look at the top, you can see it has all the detail you would expect there too. Like the horn, which is actually a brass horn. And then the antenna and your AC unit. And the cool thing about the AC unit, I'm going to see if I can, it's kind of hard to show, but I did show this on the product spotlight. Check this thing out, man. Oh, it goes out of focus. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Oh, careful. I'm going to break the rails. Can you see the fan detail up in there? Isn't that crazy? That thing's awesome. So, anyway.
All kidding aside, is SP your favorite?
I think SP is my favorite. I've just always liked them. I remember growing up out in the valley, in the San Joaquin Valley, around Stockton. I saw a lot of SP. So that's what ran through there. We had Southern Pacific, and we had Western Pacific, and we also had Santa Fe. So those really are my three favorites. I think that's what I saw the most of as a kid. Although, and I've told this story before, I want to get that red one next, wherever it went.
It's right here, ready.
Let's carefully put that back. So, when I was a kid, I went to school at a place called Linden. So, Linden is a small town that's basically straight east of Stockton. So, I don't know if you're familiar with that area. You can look on a map and see this. And the elementary school runs along a street that's called Front Street in Linden. And there was a track there that went right along the street. It was off to the side of the street, basically. It was almost street running, but it didn't go down the middle of the street. It went off to the side.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I had a very short segment on a podcast about 2 years ago where we were in Linden, and I took a camera and said, here, film this, because I want to tell people about where I grew up. So you can find that. I think it was April or May of 2018, if I remember right. But anyway, at the time when I was a kid, we moved there when I was in 4th grade. So you could hear the train blowing its horn, and it was a Stockton Terminal and Eastern train that came to do local business, right? Because there's agriculture out there. So I'm guessing they probably picked up nuts and cherries or whatever from Linden. And so I never got any pictures of it, but my friend Dave Stanley has loads of pictures in his collection. And I was out visiting him for something, I think last summer, and he showed me some pictures of the ST&E. And I thought that I recognized at least 2 locomotives that may have been ones that I saw, because when I was in 4th grade and we heard the horn, because it had to sound the horn to go across Duncan Road, I could hear it from the classroom. It was a really, really loud horn. And the teacher would let me run out to watch the train go by. So she knew I was a foamer back then, even though I didn't.
She must have been a foamer.
She must have been a foamer of some sort, huh? So it's interesting that I should mention all this, and also mention Dave Stanley, who showed me those pictures, because, and this one really is cool, for real. This one is definitely one of my favorites, and I'll tell you why. There's a few reasons. And you may remember this because I did a product spotlight on it, but I also mentioned it when I was interviewing Dave Stanley, because he wrote a book about this particular railroad. Give me a second to get the foam out of this guy. This thing is so cool. So, if you know Dave and you're familiar, you've been watching the channel, you know what you're about to see. Here it is. It's the Cct Gp7 Number 60. Now, Cct is also from the area where I grew up. And although I didn't see these locomotives or this particular agency running around back then, it's still something that I would have seen if I had gone into Stockton. And there's even a chance that my friend Dave Stanley would have been running the Locomotives at the time. Now, what's particularly cool about this is that paint scheme was invented or created by Dave Stanley. So what I did, and I think it's kind of goofy, but I did it anyway, was one of these last times when I saw Dave, I asked him to, I'll switch cameras for this. I asked him to sign the box for me because he invented the paint scheme. He operated that locomotive. He ran that locomotive on the CCT. So there's a personal thing to it. And someday, if I ever have a HO scale layout, I will most definitely run this model on there. And I'll think of my friend Dave. That was something that, I don't know, it's just cool because I've always liked the paint scheme. And I remember when I did the product spotlight for this model, I commented about how much I like this red CCT paint scheme. At the time when I did that product spotlight, I didn't know Dave yet. So when I met him and found out that he is the one who created that paint scheme, I thought that was pretty damn cool. So, do you have any experiences like that? I just think that's a cool thing to have, and to know the guy who invented, who invented the paint scheme, and we've hung out, and he has his Murata Belt Railroad is really cool. I took Alvin out there. As a matter of fact, the video came out yesterday at 9 in the morning.
Just joined after they've just watched it.
Oh, so you know what I'm talking about. You saw the guy and you saw his layout. And we did a layout tour at the Murata Belt sometime last summer. And Dave's just a really great guy. He has a great layout. His wife Shirley is a nice person. They're just really quality people, I think.
Someone named Dalamar says nice. They have a Cct Caboose.
Who does?
It's part of their Valley memories.
Oh, Cct Caboose, yeah. Yeah, one of these days, and it's still kind of in the works right now, but I've been talking to Dave Stanley about coming out to Stockton, to the area where he lives. He lives in a place called Murata, which is basically a part of North Stockton, if you will. I don't think it's incorporated, but that's basically where it is. It's north of Stockton off of Highway 99. And I knew about Murata because I grew up out in that area, right? I just told you I went to school in Linden. Well, I lived in a place. Well, the address was Lodi, but the nearest town or civilization was a little town called Lockford, where I lived. But I went to Linden schools. It was kind of a weird situation. We were kind of in the middle of nowhere, like we had a Lockford phone number, a Lodi address, and I went to Linden schools. But I think actually the closest town by way of the crow flies was probably Clements. So if you're familiar with that area, you get the idea. So I knew about Murata. And so when Dave contacted me to do his Murata Belt, I'm like, oh yeah, I know where that is. So it was just kind of, I don't know. When things like that happen, it's like going home, So I feel a connection to the area. So we have something here, and this is the last piece, okay?
Appropriate. It's
appropriate too. You'll see why in a second. If you've been watching the channel, you already know what it's going to be, because this is a very recent product spotlight that I did. And here we go. Let's get the camera set here. This is a really cool piece. It is a Union Pacific Cupola Caboose. Now, somebody had told me in the comment section on the product spotlight of this model that Union Pacific never had one of these, this particular model, which is fine with me. I don't care. It's a cool model nonetheless. And ironically, I have a picture of a very similar caboose to this one hanging up here in my office over the door. And when I saw the model, I thought, no, it won't, no, just leave it. Oh, I guess we'll show you the picture. I'm sure that anybody looking at this who knows about these things will say, well, that's not the same caboose. And I can tell from looking at the picture that it isn't. But check this out. Right? So when I got the model, I thought, gee, that looks awfully familiar. But I forgot that I had this picture. And after I did all the work and everything to make the video, one day I was walking out of my office and I looked up like, oh, that's where that picture went. So anyway, back to the model. So you might recall, if you've been watching the channel, this Caboose was in the Train Man series from Atlas. But I was kind of marveling over the fact that it had window glazing. Remember when I first started this and I showed you the Silver Streak Caboose from Tyco and I ran my little skewer all the way through the cupola? Well, this one has windows. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it has window shades, which I also thought was pretty cool. And it has separately applied wire grabs, which I thought was also cool. And I don't know, I just think it's a cool model. And I hope that someday, when the SBHRS opens back up again, I'll be able to run this model with that little Union Pacific MP15 DC that I showed you when we started looking at locomotives, at freight locomotives. Because that would look cool, wouldn't it? Just put this on a little short, not a maintenance away, like a local or something, like some local that they would just switch out of a yard someplace and just use the yard switcher for it. Maybe it's an industry that's real close to the yard. So when they do their switching to make trains or whatever, they just go do that too. I don't know. But I thought it would look cool running with that MP15 DC, don't you? So we'll look at that one more time. Let me just get a good picture of it here. And then we're almost done. So if anybody has questions or comments that you want me to address for some reason, this would be a good time to get those in, because I'm starting to go a little hoarse here and starting to feel it in my throat. So there we go. Another shot of that. It's a nice model. That's one of those, I don't know. I think I'll probably keep that one a real long time. So we still have 70 some odd people watching. So that's why I suggested, if you have a question or anything that you want me to address while we're here, this would be a good time for it. One thing I will mention before we get to that, or while I'm waiting for people to ask those questions, I do want to mention that, and I purposely didn't mention it this whole time because I don't want to harp on this all the time, but I have a Patreon page that you can go sign up on if you appreciate the work that I do here. Patreon.com/TSG Multimedia. And you can go on for as low as like $2 a month. And it helps, right? Because all the traveling that we usually do to go see stuff and bring it to the channel so that you can watch, it all costs money. And I'm not independently wealthy or won the lottery or have some insane inheritance that I didn't deserve or something like that. So I have to, struggle to get these places. And the Patreon helps a lot. The ad revenue from YouTube helps a lot. And it's getting to the point now where it's almost making enough of a difference to get there. So if you want to support the channel on Patreon, it's patreon.com/TSG Multimedia. $2 a month or more, it helps a lot, and I appreciate it a lot.
Had some help
and
here
one of the cool things about the Patreon page is that the people who are part of the TSG train crew, which is all the members on Patreon, get extra stuff. For example, yesterday we did
Brandon's recommending to people to be a
Brandon's on here?
Yep.
Hi, Brandon.
Thanks for recommending.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for recommending. Since I'm in the thanking mood, I want to thank all the moderators who are here today. I didn't get to see any of it, but I know you guys were there, and you always do a really great job. When I go back and watch this later and get embarrassed and disgusted by the problem I had in the beginning with the video buffering and all that nonsense, I'll be looking in the chat and I'll see all the great stuff that all the moderators did. So thank you very much, guys, for doing that.
Dyson wants to know if the Cct Jeep has sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Cct Jeep has sound and DCC in it. It's a very nicely done model. And that was by Atlas. You may even still be able to get that one because they re-released those fairly recently. So I would check their website first. And if they don't have it on their website, I'm sure that local railroad shops, once they're open again, or online retailers, probably have those in stock still. I was mentioning a minute ago about the Patreon thing, and I want to mention that because the Patreon members actually get stuff that the general public isn't privy to. So like yesterday, I had two friends, Dave Stanley, that I was just talking about a few minutes ago, and my friend Kevin Hill from Hollister, who actually worked, in the case of Dave, because he's retired now, but worked for real railroads. And so we had, 15 or 20 people in this exclusive virtual hangout who were able to ask those guys questions about real railroading and find out things about how the trains actually worked and what their jobs were and how things got done on the real railroads, which I thought was kind of a cool thing. I mean, it's not something that I know you can, do anywhere else. And we've been doing these virtual hangouts. That was the second one that we did. But also people on the train crew get exclusive sort of sneak peeks at videos that won't be out for a while.
Yeah, Brandon says the extra posts are nice and he enjoys his coffee mug every morning.
Oh, right. Brandon in the chat is talking about his coffee mug. That's something else that I've done is I designed some branded stuff. So TSG branded coffee mugs, t-shirts, trying to remember everything. But there's a lot of stuff on there that you can get just by helping support the channel. But the biggest thing that you can get that I think would matter the most, it would to me anyway, if I were going to support the channel, is the fact that you get to realize that you're helping bring the content that you really enjoy to the public. That means something to me because as someone who does it, I work really hard to make sure that things look and sound good. And there's a lot of channels out there where that they don't matter or they don't pay as close of attention to that as I do.
Theodore says he highly recommends it as well. Your productions are great and entertaining. Join the rest of us. It's fun.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of train crew people watching. So I guess I should thank the train crew also, because without you guys, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen. So thank you very much. It means a lot.
Says 2 hours later and we're still watching. You really got the best viewers on YouTube. Long live TSG.
Wow. Miguel really knows what it's about, doesn't he? Because that's what I always say. I joke about it, but it's only half joking when I say that, it's the best viewers on YouTube. I really feel that way about the audience of this channel. So if you enjoy it, share it with your friends. That's another thing. If you go on social media, like, for example, I always talk about, Patreon and, it's only $2 a month or whatever. But I know that not everybody can afford to pitch in or chip in or part with $2. And that's okay. The people who can't afford to do that or are unable to can just share the videos on social media. If you share it in your groups on Facebook, or if you see a post where something is relevant, like for example, fairly recently I was cruising in one of the Facebook groups that was dealing, I think, with HO scale model railroading, and somebody was asking about DCC or asking about JMRI. They were asking about something, and somebody in the comments that I don't think I knew who it was, posted a link to one of my videos that dealt with that exact topic. That's what I'm talking about. And I wish I could remember who it was, because they might even be watching, and I might even thank them here for that. But the point, though, is that there's a lot of information in a lot of the videos. I mean, I know a lot of them are just goofing around and having fun, like chasing trains, like the one that came out yesterday. But the Model Railroading 101 videos, I think the product spotlights also are worthwhile, because you can see something new that's coming out and it may inform your decision if you're thinking about getting something. But also, what about Model Railroading with Jack Burgess? And then the weathering ones that I've done with Jason Hill here. There's a lot of how-to stuff and a lot of informational stuff that if you're reading Facebook posts, for example, and someone asks a question and you're like, oh, wait, John did a video about that, feel free to post the link. I mean, that's great. I think that helps people, which is really what we're trying to do here. It helps people, and it gets the word out as much of good information as we can give people. I think that's really a great side effect, right, of what we're doing here. So,
hey, Nice Hands Nick says he enjoys his coffee mug every morning.
That's right. Nice Hands Nick has one too.
And Mr. Dave says an onward theme chasing trains would be funny. You need a 70s van with a unicorn on the side.
I think Dave's hitting it a little too hard today.
Skyrolo 54 says if they can chase trains with us, whoever, and Alvin, that they'll pay for gas and lunch.
Oh, well, that might be a good thing to take him up on. But, you know...
John Dyson says, some Monday when everything's cool, you should come out and chase trains with him.
Oh, yeah, definitely, John. I think we should do that. Because you live in a place where there's actually trains, you know. I always talk about this area where I live in the South Bay, in the Bay Area. There's not a lot of trains out here. I mean, we got to see that 1111 come through with an officer special or manager special or whatever it was yesterday. That was probably, well, it's not entirely true, but I'll just say that we have very little freight traffic on the coastline.
Train, what, once or twice a week?
We have local or a couple of locals that run to and from Watsonville or to Watsonville and back to Warm Springs, but it's, you know, it's like one freight train a day. Other than that, we have Caltrain 4 times a day in each direction. So northbound they do 4 in the morning, and southbound they do 4 in the afternoon. Or it might even be down to 3 now. I'm not even sure what Caltrain's doing with the virus and everything. They're probably a very abbreviated schedule. But other than that, we have the Amtrak Coast Starlight that comes down in the morning, and the one goes north in the evening or nighttime, like 8 o'clock or something. And if I drive to Santa Clara or to the main station in San Jose, I can see Ace and the Capital Corridor, you know, the Amtrak California that I showed you, the F-59s. That's it. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's mostly commute trains, which, you know, they're kind of the same thing. It's one of maybe one or two locomotives with the same kind of cars generally. So
Nice Hands Nick says he catches a local in Morgan Hill daily at 15:30 p.m. Cochrane and Monterey.
Yeah, that's probably the Warm Springs local going to and from Watsonville.
Sparky wants to know if it's still a no horn zone downtown.
It never was.
Well, there was the whole deal that was going on when he was here.
Downtown has never been a quiet zone. Downtown is a loud zone. So, yeah, and the people are probably still pissed about it too, I would imagine. So anyway, are there any other questions about the models or about upcoming programs, or does anybody else have any smart-ass comments they want to make? We're open for business, man. It's the last chance.
Open for smart-assery.
Yeah, we'll take smart-ass comments. It's the last chance, though.
Nice Hand Nick was making a point that the train shop is open for curbside pickup, and a lot of people's brick and mortar is open. So you have plenty of stuff to keep you busy while you're...
Well, it's true. A lot of your local businesses are open for curbside service. Nick is talking about our train shop here in Santa Clara. If you call ahead and order what you want and pay for it over the phone, they'll come and bring it out to your car at a specific time that's arranged with them. So I think that's a good idea.
Shout out to Paul Nolan.
Is Paul here too?
Yeah, he just sent you $50.
What? Paul did?
He said he's crazy.
I was about to start talking about how everything's Paul's fault, but I think I won't do that now.
It's never Paul's fault anymore.
No, Paul, no, he's perfect.
It's Trevor's fault now.
Paul hasn't done anything wrong. Paul's super great. He's the best guy in the world. Thanks, Paul. That was very nice of you.
He says he hopes it covers coffee.
I know that. Well, I don't know if you heard, Paul. Now, I don't think you can take it back, so I'll tell you. I stopped drinking coffee. I know you're not going to believe me, but I stopped drinking coffee because last year, the top secret person was a top secret patient in the hospital for something, and she had to go off coffee. So guess what happened? I kept drinking it because I really do like it. And at some point she says, "Oh, I'll tell you what, after I stop drinking coffee, I don't get heartburn at all," she says. And I was getting heartburn all the time. I got those big ass Tums, the antacids from Costco. I mean, the big thing. And, you're popping those things like, well, I'm exaggerating a little bit. You pop those things like candy, right? Because you got heartburn all the time. That's what I was doing. Maybe not. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. I got heartburn very easily.
Mike's on here. No.
Yeah. Right. So she says, you should try not drinking coffee and see if you still get heartburn or something like that. And I said, yeah, right. That's not going to happen because I like my coffee. But then, I don't like heartburn. And really what it came down to was it was worth a try. So about 2 months ago, I stopped drinking coffee. She has this stuff that she drinks that's kind of like coffee, but not at all like coffee. It's brown and it's warm. But it's called chicory. You ever heard about that? I call it trickery because it tricks you into thinking it's coffee by the way it looks, but it tastes crappy. Especially if you're accustomed to coffee. This chicory stuff tastes like crap. Or toilet water is what I said. And it's even, brown. You can let your imagination do the rest. Well, anyway, so she's like, just stop drinking the coffee. And then maybe later on in a couple of weeks, you can try this chicory stuff. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Well, I stopped drinking coffee, and it wasn't hard to do. I told you before I could stop anytime I wanted to. I just liked it, so I kept drinking it. So I stopped drinking the coffee, and I didn't try drinking that chicory stuff because, like I said, it still tasted horrible to me. It's like, who wants to drink this crap? It tastes terrible. It tastes like dishwater or something.
And then you came over to the dark side.
I waited for about, 2 or 3 weeks or maybe a month or something like that. And then finally I tried it again, and it wasn't bad. I mean, it's not coffee. It doesn't taste like coffee. It doesn't smell like coffee. The only thing it has in common, two things that it has in common with coffee. One is it's brown like coffee, and two, it's warm if you heat it up. That's it. There's no caffeine in it. It doesn't make you regular like coffee. That was the best thing about the coffee, besides the taste.
Paul said he paid you to shut you up, and it's not working.
Yeah, but I figure if I keep going, it'll pay again. Then, yeah, if you pay some more, I'll just turn this thing off.
Now you need to change the Patreon levels.
Right? It's going to be, instead of cups of coffee, it's going to be chicory. I don't think so. Coffee sounds better. Besides, who doesn't like coffee and donuts? Especially you, Brandon. You should really like coffee and donuts. You got two things going for you there, pal. And Pilot's one of them. You know what the other one is. Coffee and donuts. Hey, if it's on sale, man, I'm there too. I should have been a cop.
Human City's recommending hot chocolate. But
yeah,
the chocolate still has caffeine.
Yeah. I've tried the hot chocolate, and I still get heartburn from hot chocolate. And you know that chicory stuff sort of has a little bit of a chocolatey taste to it. It's almost like a nuts and chocolate taste. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's actually pretty okay now that I'm used to it. So anyway, I wasn't going to turn this.
Ambrose says, try strong English tea. He'll be honored to buy us both one if we come to the NMRA convention in UK in 2022.
Oh.
That's a long way to go for a cup of tea.
Yeah, a cup of tea. I'll take you up on that though, Andy, because, I don't know. Look, with the virus and everything, there's a huge question mark about, look, we're close to Santa Clara. And Santa Clara is supposed to have the NMRA National next year. And we're not even really entirely sure that that's going to happen, just because there's a big question mark over all events that could be happening because of the virus. So, but I will say this, though, that Gary has kind of talked about going to the NMRA National Convention in 2022 together, because he wants to go to UK anyway. And I'm pretty sure that he doesn't really want to travel alone. So that might happen. I just don't know. There's no way to tell with the virus and everything going on right now. So
Andy says, but you have to bring me.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. More people on Patreon will help pay for something like that. It's very expensive to travel overseas. Shoot, even here, a couple weeks ago, there was supposed to be a meetup out in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. And I had purchased tickets for that, and it was like over $500 for a round trip from the Bay Area to Pennsylvania, which that's a lot right now for me. I mean, guys like Paul can afford it because he makes a bunch of money doing all that stage stuff. He's rich, and he lives at home.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that he's rich, it's that he has no expenses.
Well, that makes him rich.
Yeah. Trevor's on here and says coffee is the milk of the gods.
Yeah, Trevor, you're right. And I think that we still have enough coffee beans left to make maybe a pot or two. And I keep thinking that one weekend I'll just treat myself because I know I'll still like it. I really do like coffee. That was one of those things as a kid, you know, coffee to me was always kind of gross, but it was one of those things also that was always there. You know, like my parents would take us to some church thing in Stockton and they always had donuts. That was the only thing good about the church I went to was the donuts. So they also had coffee. And back then, I don't know if they still do this, but places like churches would have sugar cubes. Can you even get sugar cubes anymore? I don't think I've seen sugar cubes. Can you? Well, I used to eat those things. I'd go get coffee, you know, and I'd put some coffee, about that much coffee in the bottom of the cup, and I'd put like 2 or 3 sugar cubes in, and then I'd palm one, you know, I'd keep one, and then I would eat it. Yeah. So I'm sure I was just a joy to have at church for everybody. Getting hyper jacked up on sugar cubes and coffee and donuts, right? Wow. I can only imagine. I would have hated myself, I'm sure. Ugh. Is there anything else? Should we do anything else? Or can I go yet?
We're all chatting about the cost and how about going to the UK.
Yeah.
Right. $2,200 for 2 tickets from.
Is it really?
From where Sparky lives.
$2,200? Well, but that's Canadian though. It's probably less than that for US dollars. But still, I mean, it's $1,000, man. That's a lot of money. I mean, especially right now.
Plus the hotel usually doubles.
Right?
Doubles the whole cost.
Yeah, lodging is the real killer. You know, because sometimes you can get deals on airfare, but then the lodging kills you. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe if Patreon grows enough and if the channel grows enough between now and then, I'll be able to afford something like that. But here's the thing, though. When it comes to big expenses like that, I have a choice to make when it comes to things like that because I really want to go 4K on cameras because the quality is noticeably different. Now, I know because this is what I do, so I know I'm particular about that. But I got to tell you, I have seen some of these Canon 4K cameras, like the ones I use, but only 4K, and they do just an amazing job. And even sometimes that's with people that are using them who don't even really know how to use the camera. Put that in my hands, I know how to use a camera, so if I could get something like that, you'd see the level of quality on the channel go to the moon. I mean, but here's the problem. A trip to the UK is, let's say it's $3,000, just to be conservative, right? And to just use a round number. I can get 2 decent 4K Canon cameras for that much. Well, guess how many I need? I need 3.
Between Andy and Brandon, they're working to get you over there. Brandon between his Delta 1 seat and Andy. Well, you know, we'll see what happens. Exciting.
Yeah, I would really love to go. I have never been to the UK and I've always wanted to go. I have friends there that I would love to go see. And they'd be shocked to have me over there. And even one of them is a train guy. So, you know, he volunteers and does all kinds of work on some British steam. So, you know, I know people there. I know someone who's from there that could probably hook me up to see some really cool train related stuff. So it would be a business trip really, because I would have to take my cameras and I would have to make videos while I was there. That's just what I do. Anytime I travel somewhere, I'm figuring out ways to make videos. Great example was last October we went to Colorado. Well, originally we were going to Colorado to meet our new niece. It didn't end up happening for a number of reasons, but while we were there, we stayed in Greeley for a few days. And our friend Michelle Kempema that you know from, she's all over the place on YouTube. She's been on my channel. She was on a Chasing Trains that we did with Alvin and Michelle in Colorado. Well, she took us to Wyoming to meet her friend Mike Pannell. That's one of the people I know who's from the UK. He lives here now in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But he's the one who did the work on the 4004, the big boy that's in Holiday Park in Cheyenne. And I didn't know who he was. I had no idea that I knew we were going to see a big boy that's in a park. That's all I knew. Well, it turned out that Mike was the guy who was the manager for the restoration project for that big boy. So while we were there, I had my cameras, so I take them with me everywhere. I said, hey, do you want to do a video about this? I think it would be kind of cool to present something like that on the channel. So he's a super cool guy. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So I put on my Audio-Technica shotgun mics onto the cameras and put the windscreens on them. And I just asked him, here, talk about this, talk about that. And I recorded the whole thing. And it turned out to be a really cool video that I didn't even, when we got on the plane here in San Jose to go to Colorado, I didn't even know what was going to happen. So that's the kind of thing that happens. So if I go to the UK, you better believe there's going to be some train stuff being filmed. Of course I would do some coverage of the convention itself and the train show. But I think that would be really cool. I know 10 years ago when we went to Italy, my parents took us to Italy because my dad's actually from there. And I had a crappy little consumer camera that I used to take like family videos and stuff with, but it was HD. And I did this series of 4 cab ride videos in Italy on a commute train that was running from Rome south toward Naples. So I did train stuff when we were there. I did some sort of foaming at the stations while we were waiting for the train to show up. And it's just because I happened to have a family member, an extended, cousin who worked on the train as their conductor, or in Italy, I think they call him the train master. It's basically what we call a conductor here. He was the boss of the train. And so he got me in the cab and let me film out the cab. This was in 2010. So I thought that was just a really cool adventure, and then we went south for a while and then got into the cab car going north and filmed a little bit from the cab car too, which I think is part 4 of that 4-part series. You can see that here on the channel. I think it's called Italian Cab Ride, 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, and 4 of 4. It's a really cool thing. And you'll see, remember that first train the first passenger train I was showing you that was from Italy? You'll see a train that looks just like that. That same cab, that same look of the cab of that locomotive that I showed you early on in this video.
Human City says his iPhone shoots 4K. His actual cameras that cost a lot more do not.
Yeah, no, mine too.
Paul is considering buying 4K as well, so maybe you need to chat with him.
I have an iPhone 7 that shoots in 4K, and, that's great, and I would love to shoot in 4K, but I need the functions of a camcorder. I need to be able to do full manual. I need to be able to have the balanced line in for audio so that I can use my Audio-Technica shotgun mics. I need all that stuff to maintain the quality. Otherwise, I guess there are workarounds. You could get like 3 used iPhone 7s and just shoot in 4K, but you can't zoom. There's no optical zoom. So when you zoom up with a camera like that, you're just making the pixels bigger. It's not really a zoom. It's just, I need optical zoom. For what I do, a phone doesn't work. I mean, it's fine for doing a chasing trains video where you're just screwing around or whatever, but for serious videos, I need to have a camcorder with a real lens and all that stuff. So, anyway.
So it just sounds like there's a lot of people interested or dreaming of going to the UK NMRA convention. That would be a special trip.
It would be a special trip, and I would really like to go.
Before that, they could come to the NMRA convention.
Oh yeah, come to Santa Clara. If the convention happens here in the Bay Area, come to Santa Clara because, well, I'm going to be there. Don't come because I'm going to be there though. But if we happen to run into each other, and if you happen to be in the area for longer than just the week of the convention, who knows what kind of stuff that might end up happening? Because, anytime somebody comes out, especially train crew. I mean, it's really mostly train crew, Patreon supporters. We go do stuff, Dave came out here, Sparky 107, this guy, Sparky 107 came out here last summer, I think, and we did all kinds of stuff. I made, I think, 2 episodes of Chasing Trains out of that. check it out when you have a chance if you haven't already seen it. We had all kinds of fun. That was a really fun time, that few days that he was out here. And then the one that came out yesterday when Alvin came out from Utah, boy, that was a lot of fun. That was a really cool Chasing Trains episode because it had a bunch of train crew members on it, and also just almost everybody that has been on Chasing Trains, or a whole lot of people that have been on the YouTube channel, were on that video. Jack Burgess was on it. Dave Adams was on it. They both have done layout tours. Jack Burgess has his Model Railroading with Jack Burgess series on the channel. Dave Adams has also been on the live, what was that thing called that we were doing before the virus hit? The Crew Lounge. He's been on that. John Wiley was on that same episode on that first day. Robin was on it. Gilstrom from the SBHRS. John and Robin are the guys I went to the N-Scale convention in Utah in 2018 with. We rode the Zephyr out there, and I made a video about that too. You can find that on the channel. N-Scale Convention Utah or something like that. You can find it. It wasn't Chasing Trains, but it's a lot like a Chasing Trains video. I'm trying to think who else was on that. Trevor was on it. That's Trevor Park, who's in the chat, or was in the chat. I don't know if he's still there, but he was on.
Known as Tree Frog Productions.
Yeah, Tree Frog Flag.
Oh, Flag.
Tree Frog Flag. Try saying that when you're drunk. Tree Frog Flag. I'm not drunk. Productions. Trevor was on it. He was the fireman at Roaring Camp the day when I took Alvin out there. Who else? Gary, Goofy Gary, Hunter was on it. John Dyson was on it. He's the train crew. Dave Stanley was on it. I mean, it was like an all-star cast of TSG channel people, and we had so much fun. I mean, you could tell watching the video. I watched it when I edited. It was funny when I edited that video. I was there again. Kevin Hill was on it too. We did something really top secret and really cool that I can't tell you about on that episode. Maybe if we meet face to face, I can tell you what we did, but that was really cool. Oh, I wish I could tell you because it was so cool, but I can't. So, but yeah, we had a great time. Boy, let me tell you, that was a really excellent visit and just all kinds of fun. So you never know what'll happen when we, get together out here doing stuff. Same thing when Dave came out. Gary, Hunter, Trevor.
He's gonna save money and just sleep in the shed.
Yeah, for sure. You could do that. The floor is kind of hard, but you're welcome to. Actually, by then we might have one of those couch things you can sleep in. But there's no fresh air machines going on here. We don't do that. Sorry. You'll have to go take a walk if you want to go make some fresh air. Dave will know what I'm talking about. So, anyway, boy, oh my goodness, look at this. There's still 60 people watching, but I've been going for over 2.5 hours. I have never talked this long before. Can I go yet? Are there still people talking?
Murph just joined.
Murph just got here?
He just finished bottling with only 4 people, though. So.
Oh, man, that's rough.
Said he had to drink our share.
Yeah, right? Well, you can handle that, Murph. It's just another couple of glasses.
He says, start over from the beginning.
That ain't happening, pal. Look, even if you did a super chat for $500, that ain't happening, so don't do it. Anyway, all right.
For 500.
Yeah, I'm not. It's too long. I'm hoarse now. I need to go in and get some water, get some dinner. It's like 6 o'clock or something, isn't it? Oh, holy crap! It's 6:40.
Sparky wants you to do a tour of the office.
I can't do that right now.
Not today, but we'll put that on the agenda.
There's nothing in here.
You just stand in one place and turn in a circle.
Yeah, I could turn in a circle for 5 minutes, and you'll see the entire studio out here.
But it's loaded with boxes of trains and stuff.
Yeah. Right now, there's all kinds of stuff in here because we had to prepare for this video. And I'm seriously thinking that next month we'll probably, as long as we're still sheltered in place and as long as we can't do a TSG crew lounge, that's the live discussion panel, because that's what these are in lieu of, is the discussion panel. As long as we don't do one of those, we'll be back here again with this same setup doing N-scale models here on the table with all my fancy cameras. But next time I know what to do to fix the thing so it doesn't buffer. I can do that right away next time. So I'm just glad that it ended up working.
Wow, Andy says it's 2:45 a.m. where he is, so that's
wow.
how dedicated your audience is.
Wow, Andy,
either
you're really dedicated or you were really bored this evening. So I don't know if I could watch
Mike
me.
Mike says he was building a depot while watching this, but he ran out of glue.
You ran out of glue because you're not supposed to sniff so much. You're supposed to use it to make the damn models. That's why.
Nice Hands Nick says he cooked for his top secret while you were yapping.
Oh, well.
He probably cooked something really good, too.
Dude, you ought to bring some of that. Oh, I almost said a bad word. You ought to bring some of that stuff over. Whatever it is. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up because I really am hoarse and need to go and do some other productive stuff. I really do enjoy the interaction, though, of being live like this. And I enjoyed sharing the models with you. Like I said, when I first started, it's a lot more than I realized I had. And there are even 2 models here that we didn't look at because they're not technically mine. I'm the custodian of these right now. And did I mention that the GP9... the counterpart? Yes, I did. I mentioned it because I said he could use it until he didn't need it anymore. Okay, I thought I forgot something, but I didn't. So I'm going to leave this running here for, another 20 or 30 seconds so you guys can all say goodbye to each other. And I'll see you on the next podcast. You're going to see me on a product spotlight on Friday next week, or N-Scale Friday. I don't remember which one it is. I got my schedule in here, but I'm not going to go dig it out. And then you'll see me on the podcast, and we'll hang out again probably next month, because even if the health department says it's okay to do the get-together at the depot, I'm thinking that it might be smarter to wait for a month or two just to be sure that everything's safe, because usually most of the people that I invite to the crew lounge discussion panels are in the at-risk category, and somebody here is at risk too. I think I'd do okay with it, but Top Secret over here doesn't. We don't want to see anybody in this house getting the virus. So we'll see what happens, but I'm 99% certain we'll be doing this with N-Scale next month. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you all the moderators for all the help. Thanks to Top Secret here.
Says goodnight, John Boy.
Good night, Mary Ellen. And
good night, Paul.
And thanks to all the train crew members and everybody who watched. Really appreciate that. So we'll catch you. Yeah, we'll catch you next time.